Hello everyone. Have you ever been with a woman where one day her laughter feels like sunlight on your skin, her eyes are searching for yours in every room, and then suddenly something changes. She still smiles, but it doesn't quite reach her eyes. The texts are a little slower, the calls a little shorter. You can't put your finger on it, but you feel it, like the air between you has grown heavier. And if you're honest, that feeling terrifies you. Because you don't just see her pulling back, you feel yourself chasing forward. You start overthinking, replaying every word you've said, every look you've given. You ask yourself if you've done something wrong, if you're not enough anymore. And the more you try to fix it, the further she seems to drift. I've seen this moment break so many men. Not because they lack love, but because they don't understand the test that's unfolding in front of them. Yes, this is a test, not one she set out to design, but one nature, desire, and human psychology conspire to create. In this conversation, I'm going to take you deep into that space. We'll unravel the 5 mistakes men make when a woman pulls back, and how to navigate this moment with strength, dignity, and a presence that draws her back without chasing her away. Because when you learn to pass this test, you don't just keep her, you keep yourself. You see, when a woman pulls back, it rarely happens like an earthquake, sudden, loud, impossible to miss. More often, it's like the slow change of seasons. The temperature shifts, but so subtly you almost convince yourself it's still summer. Her touch becomes a little lighter, her voice carries less music, her presence not gone but somewhere else, and as men, our instinct is to reach for her, to close the gap, to grab what's slipping away before it's gone. But here is where most men stumble into the first mistake. They panic. Panic is not always loud. Sometimes it hides in your voice, in the way you begin to explain yourself more than usual, or in the way you keep checking your phone waiting for her reply. Sometimes it's in that slightly forced laughter when she seems distracted, or the too quick, "Is everything okay?" when she looks away. Women can feel panic in you long before you even name it. And when they do, something primal happens. They start to see you differently. The man who once felt like an anchor now feels like he's drifting. The one who used to lead with quiet confidence now seems to be following her energy like a shadow. Why does this matter? Because attraction is not simply about love or even chemistry. It's about polarity. In the dance of intimacy, when she steps back, the natural test is to see if you can still hold your ground. She's unconsciously reading whether you can stay connected without losing yourself. And panic tells her the opposite, that her movement decides your mood. I know you want to close the distance. I understand that ache in your chest when she feels just a little too far away. But when you let panic guide you, your energy shifts from, "I choose to be with you," to, "I need you to choose me or I'll collapse." And that shift doesn't make her feel safer. It makes her feel responsible for holding the relationship together. That's the moment she steps back even further. So how do you pass this test? You start by breathing, not just the kind of breath that fills your lungs, but the kind that fills your presence. You remind yourself of something men often forget in these moments. Her pullback is not the end. It's an invitation to show that your center is not located inside her approval. This doesn't mean you become cold or distant. That's just another mask for fear. It means you slow down your reactions. You let the gap between her texts be just that, a gap, instead of a verdict on your worth. You bring your attention back to your life, your body, your work, your friends. Not as a punishment to her, not as a game, but because you recognize that intimacy thrives when both people still have their own lives to step back into. Think of it like holding a kite in the wind. If you grip the string too tight, you risk snapping it. If you let go completely, the kite drifts away. But if you hold steady, giving enough slack for the wind to move it while keeping your own stance grounded, the kite dances. Many men believe that when a woman pulls back, the solution is to fix whatever's wrong. But what if nothing is wrong? What if the real problem is your inability to let the relationship breathe without trying to control every inhale and exhale? Women, especially those who are emotionally intelligent, notice the difference between a man who is steady and a man who is scrambling to keep the moment from changing. You might be tempted to ask her directly why she's pulling away. And while honest conversations are important, timing is everything. If your question comes from fear rather than curiosity, it will sound like an accusation or a plea. Neither invites closeness. Instead, you want to approach with openness, not urgency. When she feels that your connection to yourself is stronger than your fear of losing her, she's far more likely to lean back in. This is the paradox. When she steps back, the worst thing you can do is collapse inward, and the best thing you can do is expand outward. Stand taller in your own life. Let her see you occupied not just with her distance, but with your own rhythm. Your steadiness becomes the thing she can trust, not because you're holding on to her, but because you're holding on to yourself. The first mistake then is panic. The correction is presence. And presence is not passive. It's the active choice to stay rooted, to remember that you were whole before she arrived, and you will still be whole even if she drifts. Ironically, That's often the moment she remembers why she was drawn to you in the first place. Because here's the truth, women don't pull back to punish, they pull back to breathe, to rebalance, to test the emotional climate of the connection. If you can remain steady while she does, she learns something essential about you, that you're not a man who needs to control the wind to enjoy the sky. And from there we can begin to see the deeper layers of this test. You see, panic often has a companion, and that companion is overcompensation. It's what happens when a man senses her pulling away and decides, consciously or not, to turn up the volume. He texts more often, he plans bigger gestures, he tries to inject more romance, more attention, more effort into every moment, thinking if I can just remind her how much I care, she'll come back. It sounds noble, it sounds loving, but to her, it often feels suffocating. Because what you're really doing is trying to override her emotional signal with your urgency. And instead of creating safety, it creates pressure. Overcompensation is dangerous because it disguises itself as love. You're not yelling, you're not pleading, you're just showing up. But underneath, there's a transaction. If I give more, you'll stay closer. And that energy, whether you speak it or not, is felt. I've sat with couples where the man can list every good thing he's done in the weeks after she started pulling back. Surprise dinners, thoughtful gifts, extra help around the house. And yet, when I ask the woman how she felt during that time, her words are not what you'd expect. She doesn't say, cherished. She says, crowded. She says, watched. She says, like I was being convinced of something I didn't want to be convinced of yet. It's not that women don't want affection. They do. But they want it to feel free, not desperate. They want to feel like you're giving because it's who you are, not because you're trying to fix a shift you don't understand. Think of attraction like a fire. When it starts to dim, your instinct might be to throw more logs on it. But if the flame is small, piling on wood only smothers it. What it needs first is air, space. The same is true when she pulls back. Your job is not to overwhelm her with fuel, but to let the spark breathe. This doesn't mean you withdraw completely. That's another mistake men make, swinging from overcompensation to indifference. It's not about playing hot and cold games. It's about finding a sustainable, grounded level of engagement that shows you're still here, still steady, but not orbiting entirely around her. And here's where the third mistake creeps in, taking her pullback personally. When she steps back, most men's first interpretation is she's losing interest in me. And that thought becomes the seed of insecurity. You start to question your attractiveness, your worth, your role in her life. That insecurity leaks out in your tone, in your silences, in your body language. But here's the truth, not every pullback is about you. Sometimes it's about her own emotional tides, stress from work, unresolved feelings from the past, and need to reconnect with herself. Women, like men, go through cycles of openness and retreat, and often the retreat is not a rejection but a regulation. The problem is that when you make it personal, you react as if you've been attacked. You become defensive, withdrawn, or overly accommodating, all in an effort to protect yourself from the imagined loss. And ironically, it's that very shift in your energy that can make her lose interest. I often tell men your partner's emotional weather will change. Sometimes she will be all sun. Sometimes she will be rain. If you take every cloud as proof of a dying summer, you'll live in constant fear. But if you learn to stand in both the sun and the rain without losing your center, she will trust you more deeply, because she'll see that your presence is not conditional on her mood. So what does this look like in practice? It means not rushing to solve her distance. It means not needing an immediate explanation. It means staying curious rather than critical. You can acknowledge what you notice. You seem a little quieter lately. But without layering it with accusations or assumptions. You're opening a door, not cornering her into a confession. It also means continuing to live in a way that reminds both of you why she was drawn to you in the first place. The hobbies you had before her, keep them alive. The friendships you valued, nurture them. The passions that light you up, invest in them. This isn't just distraction, it's nourishment for you, for the relationship, and for the polarity that fuels attraction. Because here's a secret, when you stop making her pull back about your worth, you give her the gift of space without punishment. And in that space, she can choose to come back, not because you forced her, but because she wants to. The real test is not whether you can keep her close when she's leaning in. That's easy. The test is whether you can remain the same man when she leans away, not colder, not needier. Just steady, just grounded. And this brings us to a deeper layer, a mistake that many men never see because it hides behind the language of love and devotion. It's the mistake of abandoning your boundaries in the hope of keeping her. The belief that if you bend enough, if you make yourself endlessly accommodating, she'll see how safe and loving you are. But love without boundaries is not love, it's self-erasure. And nothing kills attraction faster than a man who disappears into the relationship until there is nothing left for her to be drawn to. There's a kind of love that looks noble on the surface, but quietly corrodes the very foundation it's trying to protect. It's the love that says, I'll do whatever it takes to keep you close even if it costs me myself. When a woman begins to pull back, some men respond by softening every edge, blurring every boundary, and shrinking every personal need. They confuse flexibility with devotion. They start saying yes to things they'd normally question. They stop mentioning what bothers them. They even change their opinions, their habits, their priorities, not because they've evolved, but because they believe it will make her more comfortable. It's the slow, almost invisible act of self-abandonment. At first, it can feel like you're saving the relationship. There's less friction, fewer disagreements. But underneath, something essential is leaking away, your self-respect. And without self-respect, attraction withers. Because here's the truth, a woman may appreciate your willingness to meet her halfway, but she will never feel deep desire for a man who disappears in the process. Boundaries are not walls that keep her out. They are the frame that makes intimacy possible. Without them, love becomes shapeless. And a shapeless love might feel safe for a moment, but it has nothing to hold on to. When you lose yourself, you teach her and yourself that her approval is more important than your truth. And here's the paradox, the more you bend to keep her, the less she trusts that you're capable of holding her. Think of it this way, desire is drawn to strength, and strength is not about dominance or control. It's about being rooted. When she feels you won't collapse under pressure, she can relax into the connection. But if you're willing to trade your own ground just to keep the peace, she doesn't feel safer, she feels more alone. I've worked with men who in these moments convince themselves they're being understanding or supportive. And yes, empathy matters. But empathy without boundaries is like a river without banks. It spills everywhere, flooding both people until there's no clear shape left. So when she pulls back, ask yourself, what am I willing to give without losing myself? Where does my yes stop being generous and start being self-erasure? One powerful way to notice this is to watch for resentment. Resentment is the shadow that follows self-abandonment. If you find yourself secretly angry, hurt, or drained while continuing to accommodate her distance, you're no longer giving, you're bargaining. And the price you're paying is your authenticity. Reclaiming your boundaries doesn't mean pushing her away. It means remembering that the relationship is a meeting of two whole people, not one person dissolving into the other. It means saying, I'm here for you, while also saying, I'm still here for me. Sometimes, holding your boundary is as simple as not rearranging your entire day when she cancels last minute. It's as subtle as still going to the gym instead of waiting by your phone. It's as important as telling her, calmly and without anger, what matters to you, and trusting that the right woman will respect that. And here's the beautiful part, when you hold your boundaries, you pass another part of the test. You show her that you're not afraid of her absence. You're not measuring your worth by her nearness. You are a man who loves her presence, but is not undone by her space. That energy is magnetic. Now, there's another mistake that ties closely to this one, and it's more emotional than behavioral. It's the tendency to interpret her pullback as a signal that you must prove yourself again. When insecurity kicks in, some men turn the relationship into an unspoken audition. Every interaction becomes a chance to win her back. You monitor her reactions like a performer scanning the crowd, reading every smile or silence as a review of your performance. But here's the problem. When love starts to feel like an audition, it stops feeling like love. She didn't choose you because you were performing. She chose you because you were real. And if you turn into an actor the moment she steps back, she senses the shift immediately. A relationship where you are constantly proving your worth is not a relationship. It's a job with no paycheck. And the more you audition, the more she sees you as a candidate rather than a partner. When a woman pulls back, she's unconsciously asking, can I trust you to still be you when I'm not constantly validating you? If your answer is to slip into proving mode, you're telling her, my sense of self depends on your applause. That's not stability, that's dependency. The antidote is radical authenticity, not the kind where you dump every thought and feeling onto her, but the kind where you remain fully yourself, whether she's leaning in or leaning out. You don't shrink, you don't inflate, you simply keep showing up as the man she met, the man she respected, the man she felt drawn to before this moment of distance. It's easy to think that passing this test is about strategy, say the right thing, give the right space, make the right move. But at its core, it's about embodiment. It's about living in such a way that her pullback doesn't shake the ground beneath you. Because the truth is, the test is not really about her at all. It's about you. It's about whether you can stay connected to your own truth in the face of uncertainty. There's a moment after you've felt her pulling back for long enough when your patience starts to harden. You tell yourself, if she's going to be distant, I'll be distant too. It feels fair. It feels like self-respect. But often it's just another form of fear wearing a different mask. This is the mistake of mirroring her withdrawal. On the surface, it can look like you're matching her energy. But in truth, you're no longer leading the emotional tone of the relationship, you're reacting to hers. You've traded presence for pride, and pride is not the same as power. Here's why this is so destructive. When you respond to her pullback by retreating in equal measure, you create a feedback loop of distance. She steps back a little, you step back a little more. She feels your withdrawal and interprets it as emotional disconnection, which makes her protect herself further. Before long, the two of you are orbiting each other without ever touching. Now, I'm not talking about giving her space. Space can be healthy. I'm talking about the passive-aggressive kind of withdrawal that says, I'm going to punish you by making you feel what I feel. That's not strength. That's a quiet declaration of war. And in relationships, war rarely ends in intimacy. The difference between healthy space and mirrored withdrawal is intention. Healthy space is about staying grounded in yourself while allowing her the room to process whatever she needs. Mirrored withdrawal is about control. It's hoping that if she feels the sting of your absence, she'll come running back. But love doesn't grow of manipulation. Even subtle manipulation erodes trust. I've seen couples fall into this spiral without realizing it. The man starts replying slower, touching less, engaging less in conversation, not because he's genuinely busy or content in his own life, but because he wants her to feel the imbalance. And maybe she does. But what she also feels is a shift in the emotional climate, from openness to competition. Think about it. If every time one person retreats, the other responds in kind, there's no stability. It becomes a game of chicken. Who will break the silence first? Who will admit they care more? And the truth is, in love, winning that game usually means you've both lost something far more important, the safety to be real. So how do you avoid this trap? You resist the urge to let her energy dictate your own. That doesn't mean you chase her. It means you hold your line, the same line you'd hold if she were leaning in. Your warmth doesn't suddenly disappear because hers has dimmed. Your attentiveness doesn't collapse into coldness just because she's quiet. This is one of the deepest tests of emotional leadership. Can you maintain your chosen way of being without letting her shifts pull you off course? Imagine a lighthouse. Ships navigate by it because it stays in one place, shining the same steady light regardless of storms or calm seas. If the lighthouse started dimming its light whenever the sea grew rough, ships would be lost. In the same way, your steadiness in moments of her withdrawal is not about ignoring her. It's about making sure she knows there is still a safe shore to return to. Now, some men hear this and think it means being endlessly available, no matter how much she pulls away. But steadiness is not the same as self-sacrifice. You're not clinging to her or tolerating neglect. You're simply refusing to let your love become a mirror that only reflects what she gives you. When you refuse to mirror her withdrawal, you're sending a subtle but powerful message. I am not controlled by the fluctuations of your closeness. I am here because I choose to be, not because I need you to validate my existence. That energy is incredibly attractive because it's rare. Most people, when they feel someone retreat, either chase or retreat themselves. Very few know how to hold the middle ground. And here's the nuance. Holding the middle ground doesn't guarantee she'll come back. This isn't about using emotional steadiness as a tactic to lure her in. It's about living in such a way that whether she comes closer or not, you remain aligned with who you are. That's what keeps you from becoming bitter or resentful in the process. You see, the most dangerous thing about mirrored withdrawal is not that it pushes her further away, though it often does. It's that it turns you into someone you don't want to be, someone reactive instead of intentional, someone who lets their connection be defined by fear instead of love. And this brings us to the final mistake, the one that underlies all the others. It's not panic or overcompensation or self-abandonment or mirrored withdrawal. It's something quieter, but far more corrosive. It's forgetting who you were before she came into your life. There's a truth I've watched unfold in so many relationships, and it's perhaps the most heartbreaking of all. Somewhere along the way, a man forgets who he before she came into his life. When you first met her, you had a life that was entirely your own. You had routines, passions, friends, ways of moving through the world that had nothing to do with her. She was drawn to that man, the man who carried his own light, whose attention was a gift because it came from someone already full. But when she begins to pull back, it's easy to forget that. The fear of losing her can make you abandon the very life that made you magnetic in the first place. You stop going to the gym because your mind is elsewhere. You cancel plans with friends because you're waiting to see if she'll want to see you. You stop investing in your projects, your learning, your joy, because your energy is consumed by decoding her distance. And here's the irony, the more your world shrinks to orbit only around her, the less there is for her to orbit toward. You become like a planet that's lost its own gravity. Forgetting who you were before her is not just a personal loss, it's the death of the very polarity that fuels attraction. Women are not drawn to men who vanish into them. They are drawn to men who can stand beside them, whole and alive, with their own center of gravity. So when she pulls back, the deepest, most important move you can make is not toward her. It's toward yourself. Reclaim the life that existed before her, not as a weapon to make her jealous, not as a performance, but because it's yours. Because it's what keeps you alive, interesting and rooted. Do the things that make you lose track of time. Call the friends who remind you who you are. Take on the challenges that sharpen you. Read the books, take the trips, lift the weights, create the art, solve the problems that have been waiting for you, not to distract yourself from her distance, but to remember that you are more than this moment. When you remember who you were before her, something shifts. You stop waiting for her energy to decide your mood. You stop making her pull back into a referendum on your value. And without trying, you often reignite the very attraction that fear was slowly extinguishing. Because here's the truth, she doesn't want to be your only source of meaning. No healthy woman does. What she wants, even if she can't always articulate it, is to be with a man who chooses her from a place of abundance, not absence. When you bring that man back to life, you pass the test. You show her and yourself that you can love deeply without losing yourself. You demonstrate that her pullback does not unravel you, and you remind her of the steady, alive, self-respecting man she was first drawn to. All 5 mistakes we've spoken about: panic, overcompensation, taking it personally, mirroring her withdrawal, and forgetting who you were. They are all rooted in the same thing: fear. Fear that you are not enough as you are. Fear that her distance means the end. Fear that without her closeness, you will lose your ground. And the antidote to fear is not control, it's presence. It's staying rooted in your own life, your own value, even as the wind shifts. It's being the man who can stand in uncertainty without scrambling to fix it, manipulate it, or run from it. That's the man she trusts. That's the man she desires. And most importantly, that's the man you can respect when you look in the mirror. So if you are in this moment right now, if she's a little quieter, a little further, a little harder to read, I want you to take a breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Remember the man you were before her, and choose right now to lead from that place. Don't panic. Don't flood her with attention to fill your own emptiness. Don't make her distance about your worth. Don't punish her with your own withdrawal. And above all, don't forget the life, the passions, the fire that made her notice you in the first place. If she comes closer again, beautiful. If she doesn't, you haven't lost yourself. You've only become more of the man you were meant to be. And that is never wasted. You are not here to pass her test by becoming who you think she wants. You are here to pass it by staying true to who you are. That is the deepest seduction, the deepest trust, the deepest love. And if you can hold on to that, not just when she's leaning in, but when she's leaning out, you will find that you don't just keep women, you keep yourself. And that, in the end, is the real victory.